Hey everybody, my name is Heather Palacios. I'm on staff here at Church by the Glades, where I am also making this video for you. I'm also part of the Leading and Loving It team, and more recently started an organization called Wonderful, which is my passion of just helping anyone, anywhere, going through any mental affliction to not give up. Today, I want to talk to you guys about how to live with a mentally broken person. And I wish I could say that I was speaking in the sense that I am not the mentally broken person. But alas, that is not the case. The bulk of this research and this message really comes from the perspective of the person that's had to live with me for the last 21 or 22 years. Don't quote me on that. But that's my husband, Raul. Him and I have collaborated many a time so that we could give people encouragement when it comes to living with somebody that is mentally broken. And so we're going to be gleaning a ton of awesomeness from 1 Samuel chapter 25. You may have heard of Abigail before, but I want to look at Abigail and her husband, Nabal, because there's a lot of similarities between those two and Raul and I as far as living with somebody mentally broken. So let's just jump in right now. I'm giving you real condensed snippets of the text, so if you want to read it its entirety, please, on your own, go do that. But for the sake of time, I'm going to shorten some of it. 1 Samuel 25, verse 3, this man's name was Nabal, and his wife Abigail was sensible and beautiful. But Nabal could be crude and mean in all of his dealings. When King David heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep, he sent his 10 young men to ask Nabal for a favor, to which Nabal responded, "Who is this fellow David dude?" he sneered to his young men. "Who does David think he is asking me for a favor? Please," all right? So it's kind of like how it went. Based on just those first few verses, I want to do a quick character study of Abigail and Nabal so that you will be able to see the parallel between my husband and I. Abigail was beautiful. Raul is a beautiful species. He is 100% Cuban, hot head to toe, or as they would say, caliente. Abigail's sorrow is that she was mismatched in her marriage to some degree. She was a even-keeled, kind, generous peacemaker, married to an ill-tempered, mean, crude hothead. I remember when Raul and I were engaged, Raul actually had a well-intentioned pastor pull him aside and give him the advice that he might want to reconsider marrying me because it would be quite a mismatch for us as well. Raul did not heed that advice, and the story ended well. This pastor ended up circling back around years later and apologizing. But nonetheless, big parallel with those two in 1 Samuel and Raul and I. The other thing about Abigail is that years of living with Nabal had not made her bitter. And I can testify that Raul has had to live with me for over 2 decades. And it's not been easy, but he has not gotten bitter. Now, Nabal, let's talk about him for a minute. His name means fool, a sign that proved to be his character. Ironically, or not ironically, when you look at my maiden name, Heather Funk, Heather is a weed. My parents were hippies, so that makes sense. But Funk is scared. So I'm like a scared weed. I don't know. I don't know if that was a prophecy of things to come, but nonetheless, bad names for both Nabal and I. Nabal also makes everything complicated, and so do I. I have been notorious for, in the name of the depression or the anxiety or the suicidal temptations, you just make everything complicated because your brain's on fire. But anyway, continuing, verses 12 to 13. So David's young men returned and told David what Nabal said, and David was like, "That's it, we're going to go attack him, we're going to kill him." And David started off with 400 of his men charging towards Abigail and Nabal's house. And just to that point, I would say that mental brokenness can cause relational battles. Often I've thought that I was right. on the hill, and Raul was wrong at the bottom of the hill, and I'm, jockeying from this position that I'm right, you're wrong, and it causes these relational battles. And what we need to recognize, whether you're the Raul or the Abigail or the me and the Nabal, is that in God's economy, we're one. We're one in a marriage. And in any other kind of relational dynamic, you're still one because God is for both of you. He's not divisive. Verses 14 to 17, meanwhile, one of Nabal's servants went to Abigail and was like, David sent these messengers to Nabal to ask for a favor, but Nabal went all psycho and screamed at him, and you need to know this, and you got to figure out what to do, Abigail. You got to fix this because they're going to head our way, and they are going to kill all of us. Nobody can take your husband. He's so ill-tempered and crazy. And to this, I wanted to just say that mental brokenness can affect the whole household, the whole family, the whole team, the whole small group, the whole dorm. And I don't have an answer for that other than just know that. If you're living with someone that's mentally broken, it can be one bad apple spoiling the whole bunch. So don't be taken by surprise and let that throw you off. Just know we're complicated and we can make things messy. Verses 18 through 20, Abigail wasted no time, though. She quickly gathered her things, packed them on donkeys, sent her servants. She told them, you guys go on ahead, I'll follow shortly. And she saw David and his men coming towards her. She headed towards them. All of this to say that there's a discernment that Abigail had, and it was a quick discernment. She didn't have time to go to her prayer closet. She didn't have time to watch 14 episodes of Dr. Phil. She didn't have time to assess the situation with the pros and the cons. This was an urgent situation made by the mess of her mentally broken husband, and she needed to think quick. And I love that. I love that she did. I also love that she was proactively doing what she needed to do to get them ahead. I'll speak to Raul and I. Raul has had to be the one to think, okay, what do we need to do to get ahead? Because I can be found frozen or even paralyzed when my brain's on fire. And all I'm thinking about is the urgent right here, right now. And the loved one that has a calmer brain alongside of us is able to think ahead, just like Abigail did, which is awesome. Verses 25, 27, she went to King David, and she's like, I know my husband's a wicked and ill-tempered man. Please don't pay any attention to him. He's a fool, like his name suggests. Please forgive him and forgive me if we've offended you in any way. And what I took from this is that Abigail doesn't throw her husband under the bus, but she doesn't lie for him either. She's honest. And it just goes to show the consistency of the same holy God that was in Abigail, giving her discernment in what to say and how to handle this, is the same God that has been in Raul for the last 21 years on how to handle things with me. God doesn't change. People change. God stays the same. And that's so encouraging to know as the person that's mentally broken. And it's encouraging for my husband to know that he can look to the scriptures and find encouragement from cases like this. Raul has been honest and protective at the same time. By and large, he has had to sometimes give information that, is truthful, but yeah, it might make me look a little crazy, but he's had to say the truth. But at the end of the day, I know that he's had my best interest in mind. And so I really just hope that really speaks to somebody right now, just that point alone. All right, so this is how it ends. Abigail arrived home. She found that her husband Nabal was throwing a party. He was wasted. So she exercises that discernment. He's crazy right now. I'm going to wait till the morning to have a logical conversation on all the things that went down. And unfortunately, when he wakes up the next day and he sobers up, the Lord strikes him sick. He has a stroke and he dies. And David ends up asking Abigail to become his wife. That part of this text is kind of where the parallel breaks for me, because if some royal holy hottie goes busting in on Raul after I'm 6 feet under, I will come back from the dead and haunt you. FYI. I wouldn't do that. Yes, I would. Don't put it past me. All right, anyway. All of that, though, is that I have been so blessed to see that in the scriptures, God has included epic accounts like this that have been so encouraging for Raul, who has to live with someone that's mentally broken, and for me, who has to live with someone like Raul, who has to live with someone like me, who's mentally broken. Over the years, Raul and I have put together an acronym, and I'm going to give those 4 points to you really quick. They are all based out of the book of Proverbs. If you want the correlating Bible verse in Proverbs for each of these letters, hit me up on social media or email. I'll be happy to send them to you. For the sake of time, I'm going to breeze through these. The acronym is CRAB, probably because I've made Raul kind of crabby once in a while. But here we go. First one, create boundaries. Raul has learned to create boundaries. The biggest boundary that he has created, it's his job to love me. It is God's job to save me. There have been instances where he has not known what he was going to come home and find. But at the end of the day, he has had to trust God that she is in his hands for her life. She's in my hands as my spouse. The R for the acronym CRAB is receive counseling. Raul has been man enough to say, I just need someone to vent to. I can't always vent to Heather. He's also recognized I need a professional in the area of the brain. I need an expert to talk to about the things that she goes through inside of her head. So create boundaries, receive counseling. A, actively intercede. I use the word intercede instead of pray because intercede means to place between or plead on behalf of. Folks, if you're mentally broken, you know sometimes you can't even find the words to pray. But if there's somebody that loves you the way Raul has loved me, they are interceding and actively pleading to God on their behalf and your behalf. And that is never the least we can do. You want to make me go bananas? Tell me that prayer is the least we can do. Don't say that. I'll go bananas. For Raul, sometimes it's been the only thing that he can do, and it has been plenty. And the last one is B. Be committed. Now I want to show you my doodle board here because it's a triangle. And up at the top of the triangle is God. And over here is a nice smiley face symbolizing all you normal people. And over here is a crazy cuckoo looking person symbolizing me, not you, but just anybody that's mentally broken. We're over here, okay? And you would think that I would say for be committed that Raul needs to be committed to me and I need to be committed to him. And that's not it. Raul needs to be committed to Jesus Christ, and I need to be committed to Jesus Christ. And if that's our goal, then what's going to happen is Raul and I are growing closer to Jesus Christ. We're getting closer to each other. We're getting more committed to each other. So CRAB is our acronym. Hope that helps and encourages you guys, and that the application can begin to unfold in your own situations. But for now, let me pray for you. God, I pray for anybody that watching or listening right here, right now, that identifies with Raul or Abigail. And I pray that you would just right now just pour to the overflow in their weary bodies and minds a super charge of your strength and discernment and love as they continue to navigate living with a mentally broken person. You picked them, Lord. You could have picked anybody else, but you picked Abigail for Nabal, you picked Raul for me, and you picked the people that I'm talking to right now to be with their mentally broken loved ones because you knew they could do it. Help them have that confidence. In your name we pray, amen. Thanks, guys.